Hello, and welcome to another edition of the What You Think podcast. My name is William Royal, and I'm joined, as always, by my beautiful friend, my wonderful co-host, Max Ferris.
Good morning.
Good. To some, it's a good morning.
That's true. Actually, no. Good evening.
I was making a joke about Holly.
Oh, yes. She did just wake up.
But it is afternoon to most. And it's a good day. Have you had a good day?
I have. I slept in a little too late. I was kind of late to church.
I was rushing a little bit, too.
Were you? Lost my wallet for a little bit this morning. That was kind of frustrating. It has been found, though.
Wait, was it actually lost, or was it just on the counter?
It was on the counter underneath your stuff. Yeah. So you hit it.
I see.
I did not hide it.
You hit it. That's not fair.
Okay.
I mean, I was a little bit stressed about it this morning, but I just drove without a wallet.
Whoa.
So, since April up until last week, I've been driving with an out-of-date registration. So partially illegally. It's just a finable Class C misdemeanor.
Yeah.
I made those up. Do you know? Class C, that's up your alley.
I mean, it wouldn't be.
I mean, it's not a jailable offense.
No. Well, you would get a ticket, and then if you didn't pay the ticket, then it would be.
Oh, okay. So a ticket is not a misdemeanor. You don't know?
I don't know.
Okay.
You just take the calls, though, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but and we look up, like, if someone has warrants.
Oh.
Yeah.
You guys ever had a warrant?
I haven't.
You've never had a warrant? Personally?
Yeah.
Yeah, almost. They told me I had one in Oklahoma, but I just called them and sent them. It was a small little town, and it was just a money grab.
Oh, really?
You were there for that. Remember we were going, it was like one of those small towns you got to slow down to 35, where they're just asking to pull you over. Yeah. And so you can see the 45 mile an hour speed limit sign up ahead, and I sped up too early, and he clocked me.
Really?
Going. Yeah.
Interesting.
I was like, oh, well, the sign right there said 45. He's like, well, it's not 45 until that sign. That's when you can speed up. And I was like, come on, man. He's like, no,
I feel like they try and get you slowing down. I've never heard of anyone like out of the town.
He got me speeding up. I was going like what, 45 miles an hour over.
And he ticketed you?
He sure did.
You're kidding me.
It's just how do they get revenue in that small little
that
town.
may be the lowest like margin for a speeding ticket I've ever heard of.
It was very frustrating. And then it was in Oklahoma. I'm not going to drive to go like
contest it.
No
way.
And they wouldn't take payment by like credit card or anything like that. I had to get a cashier's check and mail it.
That's really frustrating.
So I think I had a warrant technically for like 2 days. It was 2 days late, overpaid. And they were like, we will send a warrant or whatever. I'm like, you're not going to extradite me to Oklahoma for an unpaid ticket. But I paid it.
Have you ever had a warrant? I have. When I was in college, freshman or sophomore year, I had gotten a speeding ticket on a road trip. Similar situation, just, I think Lindsay and I were coming back from we had attempted to go to Enchanted Rock, so we drove down there.
Is that in Austin? I don't know where that is.
It's like in Llano, technically, I think, which is kind of, it's hill country area down there. And on the way home, same situation, it's like 75, and then it's like 55, 35, right? And you're like, oh, shoot. So I got a ticket, and I think I had another ticket somewhere, I think. I was going to do something, I don't remember if it was like defensive driving or whatever else that you're supposed to do for that. And I had forgotten about it, and so I guess it just, I don't know what the language is, but it was just past due, right?
Yeah, you didn't appear.
Right. And so
failure to appear.
Yeah.
That's the verbiage.
So then I think it was probably like 3 months later. No, it was probably longer than that. 6 months later, I had been fishing on like a Friday night with some people, and I was coming home down like if you're on Parker Road and you take a right on Murphy, where like South Fork is.
Yeah.
I was driving down there. I specifically remember I had the windows down. I was bumping some Pink Floyd. And I think I was doing like 12 over. And nobody else was on the road.
He popped you?
So I thought. and I just saw headlights and then party lights. And I was like, crap. So he pulls me over and he asked me if there was anything he needed to know. You know how sometimes like, you know, you got anything in the cars or anything else you need to tell me? I was like, I'm just now remembering that I think I got a ticket like 6 months ago, and I don't think I did anything with that. So he goes back. He comes back and he's like, listen, you do have a warrant out, but it was really late. And it was like the Parker police.
They don't want to deal with that.
No, they have like, their little facility is tiny.
It's a trailer, I think.
It's tiny. And so he told me, like, I technically could like detain you or something. But he was like, you just go home, deal with that other ticket, and then once you've done that, you need to deal with this one too. So
he gave you another ticket?
Yeah, I got another ticket, but I didn't get arrested.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Good on him. Thanks, Officer Smith.
I did after that. I think I went like 4 or 5 years ticket free.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, man. And then I got one. As is the nature of driving. Yeah. It was on the way to Colorado. You know, just trying to get there.
Yeah.
But why are we talking about this? What happened?
Oh, so I drove without proper registration for an extended period of time. Yeah. And I was like, what's one time drive without a license? That's a bad way to go.
That is a bad way.
I'm not good. I don't.
You don't advocate the actions that you've made?
No.
One of these do as I say, not as I just did kind of things?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Very cool.
What did you want to bring up earlier? There were two things, right?
Yeah, we almost got in a fight earlier.
Holly just loves to create content while we're not recording. What was that one thing you said?
1418.
Well, say it.
Yeah, what's your opinion?
You said you ask us what we thought about it, or you have a hot take yourself?
I think I have a hot take.
So I'm assuming, don't like 1418.
Will you ask the question?
It's not that I don't like 1418. I don't like their coffee.
Okay.
Because great ambiance.
Oh, okay. Here we go. 1418, for those of you that don't know, we live in downtown Plano. They're a coffee shop in downtown Plano. When people talk about downtown Plano, it is one of the things I hear constantly.
It's a well-known coffee shop.
Very well known. Here's what I always tell people. I love 1418, but I kind of hate their like seating and setup. It's one of my least favorite places to go meet people or work on stuff. Because 90% of the time I walk in there and it is full and it's packed out. You can't find a seat. And their seating is kind of weird.
No, okay, so I'm gonna throw a wrench in the system. It's packed because it's the best.
Okay, you're talking about coffee?
No, it's packed because the vibes and the seating are the best. I don't want to go to a coffee shop and sit at a table like I would at a regular restaurant. It's nice that there are chairs in there are couches in there. I think it generates better conversation because you feel more at home. You feel less out and about.
So I agree with that, but here's what I've noticed. I've had this happen to me probably 4 or 5 times. They have it kind of sectioned off, right? Mm-hmm. So you walk in and to the left, there's like 2 very comfortable chairs and a table in the middle.
Right.
Then there's another section where there's like a couch and 2 chairs.
Right.
Multiple times I've been meeting somebody there and someone else jumps into the section that we're in, which is it's just, I don't like it. It's awkward. Even if someone's just there on their computer working, you know, it's like, I'm trying to have conversations with people. It would be like, for example, let's say you and I were meeting. So we're sitting on this couch, we're having a coffee, right? Uh-huh. And Holly goes and sits right there.
It's different at home. I feel like in that place, it feels communal. I don't really have a problem with it. I do understand your frustration, but I think 1418 is for that. And I kind of appreciate that people feel comfortable enough to come like sit down next to me. Most of the time, I really have people just plop down. Usually they ask if they can sit there. And if I'm like uncomfortable with you sitting next to me, like a conversation, I'll say, "Hey man, we're having like
I have had a few that asked. Mm-hmm. I have had a handful, more for sure, that didn't. And it was just like, but again, it goes back to, I think there's this like mentality of scarcity when you walk into a place and you're like, there are 2 open seats here.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm going to go snag that. You know what I mean? Like, so I that has just been my experience for the most part. Now, here's what I'm going to say real quick.
Okay.
I think they have the best coffee in this area.
Oh.
There are coffee shops in like Saxey and Wiley, Murphy, Plano, and my favorite coffee, without a doubt, is 1418.
So you're saying good vibes, bad brews. You're saying good brews, bad vibes. Interesting.
Absolutely.
What do you get there?
Same thing I get everywhere. I get a caramel macchiato.
He gets a sugar drink.
Caramel latte.
What?
But they do something in their, it's in their espresso, I guess. Or maybe it's, I don't know. It is phenomenal. It's almost cinnamony, or like, it's like, I feel like the texture is like a little bit creamier than a normal, like than this Starbucks drink.
What's your take? What are you hoping for that you don't get out of a 1418 brew?
It's always too milky, I feel like.
What are you getting? You ask for less milk. That feels like a personal problem.
I think the last time I was there, I got a latte or something.
Do they ask you what kind of milk to
what
put
kind
in?
of
Yeah,
milk?
I think I even got like almond milk, and it was still like,
Too much milk?
yeah.
We'll just ask for less milk. The one complaint I'll have is one time I went there, and I'm a fan of cold brew.
Mm-hmm.
I love a good cold brew, and I'll do it black sometimes, just straight cold brew. And theirs, I think, is a very authentic cold brew. I found out later the cold brew is supposed to have more of a citrusy floral flavor to it. Something about when you brew the coffee over a longer period of time cold, that kind of comes out.
Really?
And so the first time I had that, it's pretty bitter, and it was not desirable. But I've since come to enjoy it.
That's cool.
I also, there's this new thing I've been doing where I'll get a cold brew, put a little bit of half and half, and then 2 pumps of vanilla to kind of sweeten it up, and that's delightful. And so I, therefore, like the vibes and the brews of 1418.
So I should say one thing. I do like the vibes. It's just
The seating.
It's that most of the time I feel like the seating is just not very. It's not available.
You know what's great?
What?
Is when 1418 is slow.
Oh, it's the best.
I went up there the other day. I think it was a Friday at around like 10. Nobody was there yet. I just got to chill. Paul was up there. Talked to Paul for a little bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I did the same thing.
I saw Sean as well. Sean Brown. You met him yet?
I don't know if I have.
That's a funny little story. I'll toss this in real quick.
Do it.
I was ordering coffee there at one time, and go to my camera if you don't mind. Are you on my camera?
Yes.
As I'm ordering my coffee, he just is making coffee, but he's staring at me like this. And so I'm like, I like caught his eye and like looked away because it's weird. And then I like looked and he's still looking at me. I was like, hey man, do I know you? He's like, no, but I want to know you. He's like, you want to be friends? And then
Really?
Yeah, I've never hung out with him, but every time I walk in there, he recognizes me and I recognize him, which is pretty cool.
So just from like working there and
Literally just that one interaction.
cool.
I think that was like 5 years ago.
Oh wow.
He's grown out his hair twice since then. He grew it out about to like almost belly button length and then chopped it up to shoulder, and he's now about down to like nips.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll have to get to know him.
He's
Very
the guy with
interesting.
long. He's the guy with long hair in there.
Well, I'll just walk in like tomorrow and be like, "You're Sean
You're
Brown."
Sean. Yeah. That'll be cool. That'll be fun for him.
Because I used to do like my Monday morning, I would just work at home, but I've started going up there. And on Monday mornings, it is pretty quiet.
That's nice.
And it's pretty nice.
That is
Last Monday morning, it was raining too. I mean, it
Ooh.
was a whole
I bet that
deal.
was delightful.
It was really nice.
Was there one other thing that you brought up that we wanted to fight you about?
We did not fight. We were talking about passwords and password protection.
Yes. Something popped up on my iPad, right?
That your passwords have been
Yeah.
exposed
It does.
at
It
all?
doesn't matter.
It does matter.
So you got a notification your passwords have been compromised.
I think all my passwords have been compromised. I've gotten that notification for like the past 4 or 5
So
years.
then you were saying that's happened to you though, and then what happened?
Yeah. What happened?
I got the same notification, and I did the same thing where I was like, oh, I don't care, like, whatever. I'm sure tons of people have their passwords exposed. And then my Chipotle account got used and they spent $70, and then someone spent $90 at Sephora, which
90
on one.
So they bought one thing.
Did they log? How they log into your Sephora?
They log in, they change the email and the password, and then if you have like your credit card stored in there, then they use it.
So I should just stop storing my credit cards on
yeah,
websites.
That's
Okay.
what I did. And you can reverse it; it's easy, but like.
Who was the card through? Discover?
If so, they probably.
No, it was my Amex.
Oh, okay. Do you have a Discover?
I do.
Okay. You would Discover, right?
I sure do.
Okay. Did I get you your Discover?
Mm-hmm.
You got
Did I
me
get you?
mine as well.
Okay, that's $100 right there.
There you go.
Thanks, everybody.
You're welcome. Thank you, because
If
Discover.
you need a Discover card, please let me know. I'll get you $50.
Yeah, and also you.
Well, don't tell them that.
Well, but that's the motive. But my question was on this whole topic. When I get a notification like that, I kind of get scared because my passwords
They're all the same.
are all the
Every
same.
single password is the same?
I have.
What's your password?
Right, yeah. I have like 2. But
Really?
one I use like, let's go 85% of the time, and then the other one is 15-20. So,
Do you write down your passwords or do you save them?
I save them.
It's in my keychain on my iPhone,
Mine,
which is dangerous.
Yeah.
I used to have 1 or 2 passwords, but now I've got like probably 5 or 6 in rotation.
Okay.
But every 3 months at work, I have to change my password.
Oh, well. there
It's
you go.
exhausting.
Yeah, that's super exhausting. When
And it
I was
has to have
working,
like a capital, a lowercase, a special character,
yeah,
3
it's
numbers.
everything, yeah.
It's like a 15-digit password every time.
well, you work for,
Yeah, we don't talk about it.
yeah, so makes sense. Shall we continue on?
Let's adjourn.
Shall we soldier on?
to the Thinker
Shout Out.
Yeah, Thinker Shout Out.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Would you like to do it, or would you like me to do it?
I'm gonna let you do it.
Okay. This week's Thinker Shout Out goes to the one and only Matthew Carruthers.
Matthew Jadavius Carruthers.
That's correct, actually. If you are a true thinker, you would recognize that name because he was a guest on our space episode.
Which people have been talking about a little bit more. It's also it's getting more listens.
I think it's
than quite a
our
few.
second hiest
Really?
episode.
That's
which
pretty
I
crazy.
think is because of just the word space.
I think so,
I
too.
guarantee people, get on YouTube or Spotify and they put space and they're just wanting to watch a video about space, and then our dumb idiot faces come up and they're like, oh, okay.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
Us.
And then they probably get about 10 minutes or 15 minutes in.
I can't even be that far.
And they're like,
What is
these
going on?"
jabronis do not know anything about space. But that is my guess. But anyway, Matt was on that episode. Well, 2 things. Number 1, about a week ago, Matt walked up to me and was like, hey, I listened to your episode on Madden, so I'm a thinker now. So give me a shout out. And I was like, okay, sounds good. But the real reason he's
true
getting this
reason of
shout
the
out
season.
is because yesterday, our very own Matt got married.
He did.
And
now betrothed.
Now betrothed. Now he's Matt Pruitt.
No, that's not how that works.
But no, it was really sweet.
It was a very sweet wedding.
So, we were going to talk about this at the beginning. I was going to ask you, but then I felt like it would be too much. But so we've essentially been together all weekend long. So,
That's
because we
true.
had the rehearsal Friday night, a lot of fun, rehearsal dinner, that whole thing. Wedding yesterday, went to dinner afterwards. It was just a really good special.
I really have seen you a whole lot.
Oh, a
this
ton,
weekend.
yeah. Pretty much nonstop since like 5 o'clock on Friday.
That's true, actually.
So, but no, yeah. It was fun. Sometimes weddings can be a lot, and sometimes weddings you can get lost in the hustle and all of the setup and the teardown and being here and doing this. And I just felt like it was not really that way.
It was chill, but it wasn't too chill to where it was not special.
Right.
It was still special. It was sweet.
Yeah. I thought it was very much
It
them.
was them.
Yeah, which was really cool.
My only complaint was I was standing on a 6-inch step for the entire time.
Yeah, I had the blessing of being on my own step.
Yeah.
and everyone else kind of down had just a little stair.
Just the tiniest.
And so after the ceremony, everybody was like, my goodness, I couldn't stand like that for so long. And I just had no idea because I was living it up.
You were fine. Yeah.
So, but no, it was great. So that's,
Shout out
They're
to you.
going to head out on their honeymoon. probably going to listen to this episode when it drops.
There you go.
And,
they probably won't.
And they won't.
It's fine.
But no, we love them, and we wish them well
All the
in
best.
their.
One
in
thing
their
I'm going to do
marriage.
for you in the future is I'm going to, not only are we going to have the what you think thing pop up, but I'll create other ones for Think or Shout At and for Guess That Year. We'll get that in the
That's
works.
cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of Guess
That Year, it's time. It's time! Fighting! That's my Bruce Buffer.
Okay, I was wondering where you were going with that.
Yeah, he shouts it well.
No.
I don't have the voice for it.
Well, I don't really watch UFC.
Well, also his brother Michael Buffer does
Jimmy Buffer.
No, that's Jimmy Buffett. Michael Buffer, he does WWE.
Oh,
They're brothers. Did you know that?
No.
They didn't know that until they were like 30.
I don't believe that.
That's a fake story.
Is that a fake story?
I don't know.
I heard him on a podcast talking about how there was another guy with his last name doing announcing with a very similar voice. And he talked to his dad, was like, who is that guy? And his dad was like, well, actually, that's your
I don't
brother.
believe that. That can't be
You think
real.
it's a fake story?
That has to be a fake story.
I mean, I
what are the
watered
odds
it down quite a bit.
that two guys, same dad, different moms, grow up and they both end up doing like an announcing for the WWE and the
seem
UFC?
pretty high because that's what's happening. At least that's how they describe it.
Homework for you this week.
Figure out if that's true.
Yes.
Okay.
Because that is ridiculous. But it is time for Guess That Year. And
It's my turn, right?
it is.
Okay.
So I have a year for you.
Okay. Are we sticking to the?
Not in the same way, but yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So in this year, Fidel Castro was victorious in the Cuban Revolution and came to power.
Okay.
Alaska and Hawaii became U.S. states officially in this year.
Okay. That actually is more helpful than I
Okay,
think.
good. Let's see. What else?
Well, I said that, but now I'm not too sure.
The Boeing 707 jet airliner came into service.
Okay. 707, is that smaller than a 47? I keep looking at you like you like planes. You want to be a pilot?
I do believe that the 747 is the
biggest.
largest.
Okay. I wonder if they're exponential or sequential.
In sports, in the sports world,
Okay.
the Los Angeles team, because I don't know which one, beat the Chicago team in the World Series.
Okay.
And Jack Nicklaus won the U.S. Amateur Golf Championship. In arts and entertainment, the movie Ben-Hur was released.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy? I've seen part of that movie.
Really?
That doesn't make that's very out of my realm.
You Ben-Hur before?
Yeah. Gosh.
Every time I hear that, I think of just like,
Been her before.
I've been here.
Been her.
I feel like that's pretty good.
Okay, so I'm gonna give my reasoning. With Fidel and Cuba, I was thinking mid 1900s,
Okay.
and then Hawaii and Alaska. I really feel like that's a 50s thing.
Okay.
Early 50s. So I'm gonna say 1953.
Okay. Not too bad. 1959.
Oh, okay.
So you're still
Little bit later.
Under 10 years. You're
Okay.
in the right decade. That's pretty solid.
I'm pleased with that.
You should feel good about that.
Yeah, I feel good about that.
I'm trying to think if there was something. There's really not. I don't feel like anything.
I feel like maybe some other type of entertainment thing might have helped me, but I don't know if really anything happened that year entertainment wise.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm looking at right now. It's like songs, Mac the Knife, High Hopes, Personality,
Never heard of
TV shows, Maverick, Rawhide, Fibber McGee and Molly. I should have read Dennis the Menace came out. And,
You know what? I don't know if that would have helped me.
Okay, see,
No,
and that's about it.
I stand by what I said.
Yeah, that's not bad. You should feel good about that.
Sweet.
Okay, well, we have done our segments. And
Ready-
now it's time
Ready to move into the meat
to
of this
move
thing?
into the meat. So I got a question for you, Max.
What you got?
What you think about college football?
I'm a fan. I enjoy
Are you?
Yes, I would say that is it's a more recent thing. I didn't grow up. My parents didn't attend a large university, and so I didn't have that in my family bringing me up. And so I
Okay.
feel like that's how usually people that are really into college football, they get it from a young age. And so I didn't grow up with
right.
this allegiance to a team.
Sure.
But I think the more that I watch football on TV, the more I'm excited by a college game than I am by an NFL game.
Okay.
And so I would say in that way, I am a fan. Yes.
Yeah.
What do you think about college football?
I love it. Oh, I love it so much.
How did you get into college football? What was your first experience with college football? What's the origin of that?
So those are kind of two different stories, but my first experience of college football, I remember vividly waking up in 2006.
Vividly?
I do.
Okay.
And seeing on the news that morning that Texas had beaten USC in the national championship. And it was they were showing, pictures of people outside in Austin, like, who had just partied all night. They kept showing that highlight of Vince Young. It was like 13 seconds left. He's on like the 20 or something. They're driving. He drops back, runs all the way out, and just gets into the pylon before the defender kind of tracks him down, scores, they win. I have a very vivid memory of being like, oh, Texas, like,
that's cool.
We're in Texas,
right?
Like, and before that, I didn't, not a Texas Longhorns fan. Like, my mom actually cheered at Texas Tech, and so I did have some Tech
allegiance,
but like my parents would watch college football, but like they were never like, if Tech was on, we would root for Tech, but they weren't super big like college football people.
Right.
So that's the first time, like the first thing that I really remember about college football. Then the next memory I have is of Alabama beating Texas. Colt McCoy got injured in that national championship game in 2010. And I remember watching Mark Ingram that year and really just watching him in that national championship game and being like, oh, this dude is crazy good. And 2010 is probably when I started getting into college football.
Okay.
So that's really where it like started for me.
Is that around the time when the reign of Alabama began?
It was their first national championship.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was Greg McElroy and Mark Ingram, I think. And then I should have looked this up, but I mean, essentially that was their first national championship win, not as a school, but like since
all
like Bear Bryant in the whatever, 70s, 80s, somewhere around there. So, but yeah, I mean, since 2010, Alabama has won a national championship like pretty much once out of every like 3 years, I think. So
it's crazy.
I think they have like 7. And we'll get into this later, but I would be willing to bet a lot of money that they'll do it this year. Yeah. But anyway, so then in high school, I didn't really, I loved watching Alabama because their running back room was always scary good.
Right.
From Mark Ingram, it was Mark Ingram and Trent Richardson. Trent Richardson was amazing. Still don't understand why he could not make it in the in the NFL. Then they had these guys, TJ Yeldon. They had this massive dude, Bo Scarborough, who actually played for the Cowboys for a very short stint. Damian Harris, Najee Harris, I think, as well.
I think, yeah.
I mean, they just churn. I mean, it's Alabama. They're always churning out wide receivers, running backs, pretty much people at every position. But as a running back in high school, I would watch Alabama and I could watch their highlights forever.
Right.
So that's kind of where I first got into college football. And then when I went to college, I mean, obviously, I think we've already stated this before. We both went to Collin College, no football team, transferred to the University of Texas at Dallas. Undefeated football team. Because they've never played a game, because they also don't have a football team. So I started dating my now wife when I was a sophomore, who cheered all 4 years at TCU. So then I started going to TCU games, and so that was like 6 years ago now, I think. So
good gosh, you're
so
old.
I've been a fan of TCU, and that's really been the first college team that like I feel like I've actually been like a fan. Like I
follow.
I go to games.
You buy the merch.
I buy the merch. I listen to like podcasts about basketball and football and baseball and stuff, and follow pretty closely. And that's kind of my like current state of fandom is that like I'm a Horned Frog fan, but I just love college football. And we can kind of get into this. I think you've kind of experienced this too, because you've been to some like A&M games, and there's just something about college football that's just different.
Okay, so I have thoughts on that.
Okay, hit it.
But do you want to talk about my origin to college? You didn't ask me any of the
Well, I
questions
thought
asked
you said that already.
I sure didn't.
Okay, well, yeah, I do.
I asked you first.
I'd love to hear about that.
So as a young teen,
as a baby Max?
a baby Max, yeah, I don't remember what the circumstances were, but I don't know if this still happens, but it seemed like it was a big deal. SMU played Army. Is that a thing that happens regularly? It seemed like a really big deal. Like it was a once a year thing.
Are you sure it was SMU?
I went to SMU to watch them play Army. Yes.
Okay. Man, I want to say they may be in the same conference, but I could be wrong.
I'm not sure, but I went to that game, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, everybody's just partying on campus. It's a different atmosphere, but I remember vividly hugging Army's mascot, and that was pretty cool. He was just out there walking around.
Really?
Yeah. So that was my introduction to college football, and then as the years kind of went on, I wanted to go to A&M, so I went down to a couple A&M games.
Right.
Had friends that went there, so I went to games there. Obviously, when you were dating Lindsay at TCU, I went to games with you, and so. But I think in high school, I wasn't really into college football, but we would always watch the championship game.
Yeah.
And then living together, like you're glued to the couch on Saturdays, so I would join you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the current status as well.
Were you at the 2010 SMU Army game?
That's probably exactly when it was. Yeah.
Army won 16-14.
I think so, yeah. Is that the last time they played?
Yeah, they're not in the same conference. And I knew that. I just don't know why I said that. Because Army, like, all of those, like, armed forces teams, I don't feel like are.
It seemed like a big deal.
I mean,
I don't know.
It was December 30th. It was a bowl game.
That might not have been it. No, because I was I don't remember. Whatever it was.
It was at home. So it was at Ford Stadium for SMU. So it probably was like the Heart of Dallas Bowl or something like that that SMU played in at home, which is probably why it was such a big deal.
That makes more sense.
So for someone to like make it, I mean, it would be like, because every year the Armed Forces Bowl is at Amon Carter Stadium, and so it would be like TCU making the Armed Forces Bowl and getting to play at home for the bowl game.
Gotcha.
Like
that would be cool.
So that's probably what happened. So
and I don't remember how I ended up there. I don't remember why I was there. I remember who I was there with, but I just remember being at SMU and watching that and hugging Army.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's pretty fun.
Do you want to get into?
Well, you were gonna say something about
why
you feel like there's like a different atmosphere.
So part of it is just because it's a younger crowd.
For sure,
you're gonna get the draw of the university, but I think it's more fun because it's more accessible.
Okay, what do you mean?
An NFL game is way more expensive. I've never been to a regular season Cowboys game.
Me neither.
Tickets are $300.
It's ridiculous.
Well, they might not be that expensive, but they're expensive.
Food,
food.
The whole experience is way more expensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think a college game is more accessible. You have and no, I'm not going to say it like that. The people that are there to have fun.
Right.
And it's just a better atmosphere.
So you mentioned the youth. I think something that college has going for it that pretty much no other like organization does is that it's constantly essentially like refreshing their fan base. So every year you have a new freshman class that is on campus, excited for their school, excited to be a part of the game day like tradition thing.
Right.
So whereas like with sports teams like NFL or whatever, pro sports teams, their fans are excited, and it's like still, and you're getting new fans and things, but it's not the same as like these kids who are here in this stadium. Like a quarter of them just showed up to campus excited for these like next 4 years of their team and stuff like that. And yeah, I feel like that just provides a different kind of excitement and atmosphere at a college football game. So
I also think, or do we want to dive into this topic in general?
in what way?
Just the why it's different.
Sure. Yeah.
I think another thing, I find NFL uniforms and colors so boring.
Well, they are.
And college does this. It feels more colorful there, which right off the bat just makes me more excited, I feel like.
For sure.
And I like teams like Oregon paving the way for having 19 different uniforms. I just think that's so cool.
Well, it is. It's very fun.
TCU does a similar thing. They've been doing it more recently. I like the color.
Well, it's super cool.
Yeah.
They do a way better job in college than they do, which we might touch on a little bit later, because I do think college kind of have to sell, right?
Right.
Like everybody's goal is to get to the NFL. And once you're there, you are at the whim of owners and managers. In college, there's recruiting.
Right.
You gotta keep that brand alive.
Right.
And so, but anyway, I did want to ask you, what are you didn't really mention this. I kind of talked a little bit about some of the memories that I have with college football, more from when I was young, but do you have some kind of in the last few years, like any specific college football memories or moments that you were like, oh, this is crazy?
So I remember the TCU Baylor game we were at, where they went into triple overtime? We were in the end zone, and so they're just battling right there in front of us. I remember that was really crazy. I also remember, on a similar note, watching the A&M LSU game, which went into like 9 overtimes.
7, I think, yeah.
And I remember one of my friends was supposed to be at that game, but thought it was going to be a blowout, so he sold his ticket.
Woof.
And then ended up not going to one of the craziest games he could have gone to.
That is insane. Yeah, the Baylor game, so that would have been 3 years ago. Yeah. It was at home. It went into triple overtime. Baylor ended up winning. It was that was probably the most intense of a sports atmosphere that I've ever been in. But one of my favorite memories was this past year. TCU had just fired Gary Patterson. Head coach there for 20 years. It's the first game without him. Their starting quarterback, Max Duggan, was injured, so they're starting a backup quarterback in the first game without Gary Patterson. They're playing Baylor, who at the time was the leader of the Big 12 Conference and ended up winning the Big 12 Conference last year, and could have gone to the playoff, except for Chandler Morris had about 530 total yards.
I forgot about that
and game. Just absolutely torched Baylor and won. And everybody stormed the field, and it was one of the most fun game day atmospheres that I've ever been around. I also remember watching in 2016 on TV. It was TCU versus Oregon in the Alamo Bowl, and at halftime TCU was down. They were down by 31, and it may have even been 31-0.
Oh gosh!
And I think it was the momentum, man. They ended up winning in overtime and tying one of the biggest comebacks ever.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was crazy. I got to go to a bowl game one time in 2018. I got to go see TCU versus Stanford in the Alamo Bowl, which was just a lot of fun.
That's cool.
It was a cool environment. So I'm trying to think of any other crazy moments in college football that I was watching.
I watched A&M beat Bama. Was that last year?
Oh my gosh.
That was wild.
That may be the best field storm that I've ever seen.
Oh, there were 2 stormings of the field that day. Don't we know somebody that stormed the field? I know somebody that stormed the field at OU and then drove down to A&M and watched that game and stormed the field there.
Wouldn't have been the same day as the Red River rival with Texas and OU, right?
I think it was.
I feel like A&M and Bama play later in the season.
I can't remember, but I know somebody that stormed the field at one point and then drove and went to the next game.
In the same day?
In the same day, and stormed the field 2 times in one day.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Dang.
I don't remember who it was, but I know about it.
That one was huge. I'm trying to think of another. Michigan last year beating Ohio State in the snow. Michigan hadn't beat Ohio State in like 6 or 7 years or something like that. Maybe even longer. That was huge.
Kenny Pickett with the fake slide.
Kenny Pickett with the fake slide last year. Unbelievable.
Not cool.
No. They ended up banning that for like later that day.
For good reason.
They were like, you can't do that, man. That is not okay.
It was dope when it happened.
It was pretty cool. I mean, you talk about some like electrifying college football athletes. Do you remember the Johnny Manziel days?
I don't know if I was really watching football back in those days, but I do remember hearing about it. I just don't think I was really watching it on TV.
Right, yeah. He was crazy.
Yeah.
RG3 at Baylor, yeah. Unbelievable. I mean, those were both Heisman winners. Mm-hmm. Crazy. Trying to think about who else in the last few years. I mean, I did get a chance to see Kyler Murray play. I saw him
at OU.
Mm-hmm, when he was at OU, when he played TCU, I saw that game and just watching.
Was that electric?
I mean, we got blasted,
right?
But
from him, electric from him.
It was, yeah. And that was the thing. It's like going into that game, it was like that was the year they made the playoff. It's like the second year in a row that they made the playoff. And he was just so good. I mean, so fast. Great passer. I mean, he's still doing really well
quick little chipmunk
in the league. Quick little guy. But just watching him in person was crazy. Yeah. Baker Mayfield was really good at OU. I did get to see in Norman TCU versus Oklahoma in 2018, same year as the Alamo Bowl, when they were both in the top 10. It was like number 4 versus number 9 or something like that.
That really cold game you went to?
It wasn't. No, that was in 2019. Okay. So this must have been 2017, actually.
All those years getting mixed
I know. But
where are we at on time?
Probably pretty deep. 42.
42. Okay, we got to not necessarily pick it up, but we're
not bad.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was wild. Like top 10 matchup in Norman at night was a Baker Mayfield year. TCU also got torched that night.
Well, that's something you come to know and love.
I know. It's going to be different.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about this year.
Okay.
So there's a lot going on in college football right now.
Right. Bring me up to speed. I'm not in the know.
So I'm gonna give you the like 5-minute or less rundown of like what's going on in college football right now.
There's some mumbo jumbo going on. I know at a broad glance we got some SEC mumbo jumbo going on.
Alignment, yeah.
Big 10, Big 12.
Sure.
It's not the Big 12.
Big 12.
Big 12 and Big 10?
Those are two separate conferences.
That's confusing.
Yeah.
But
what's
really
confusing is the Big 10 has like 14 teams and the Big 12 has 9 or 10.
Yeah. That's 9?
No,
okay.
So they play, yeah.
That wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's not. It's
you
10.
Couldn't have an odd number.
Right? I mean, no, you could.
But then you wouldn't have the matchups properly, right?
Doesn't that matter? You would just play everybody.
But then somebody gets left out.
No.
I know.
Okay, so there's two things. Number one is name, image, and likeness.
That's true.
Do you recall the Johnny Manziel deal where he got in a lot of trouble because he was profiting off signing autographs?
Okay, I didn't know. I knew that there was something going on with that. I didn't know the specifics.
Okay, gotcha. So that's a tale as old as time.
Okay.
This is the cycle of college football. And
who was he signing these autographs for? Who was paying him?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember if it was like, oh, he's just like after games, like people see him and they're like, dude, I'll pay you $100 to sign this. Like, I don't know if it was like that or if it was like he was working with a company or something.
Okay.
But that kind of thing has been going on for a long time. And for a really long time, people have always kind of debated this question, college athletics and specifically your larger sports, football, basketball, those kinds of things, are bringing in unbelievable
buku bucks
money to your university.
Yeah.
And your athletes don't get that money outside of like scholarship, right?
Right.
So
get the education, which is priceless.
Right. That's a beautiful sentiment. So what has happened is the NCAA has now made it legal and all good for you as an athlete to profit off your name, image, and likeness.
Who paved the way for that? I feel like I heard somebody talk about how like they were the one who really got the NCAA to change their mind on that.
Like a student, like an athlete?
Some type of person, yeah.
Well, probably a person.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's... People always debated, like, so this same thing happened with Reggie Bush when he was at USC. He got the Heisman, similar thing as the whole Johnny Manziel thing, but he got his Heisman, like, stripped away or something like that.
Stripped
away. So anyway, it's been a debate forever.
Right.
And everybody knew that stuff was going on.
Right.
Back door, back channel type stuff.
I also feel like most people were like, yeah, just pay them.
Right.
Especially when like the NCAA games were big.
Right.
They're in there.
Right.
Were they changing their names?
They didn't have names.
There were no names?
They were nameless.
But it was the same number, right?
Yes.
Is that part of the name, image?
That would be
likeness?
image.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So
it look like them?
I don't think so.
I can't remember.
I don't think so.
Are those back? Are those coming back?
There's a new one coming out next year. So that's part of this deal. Is the NIL the whole thing? It's making it able for like a new NCAA football game where you actually get to play with the people like you do in Madden.
Right.
So it's kind of a big deal.
I wonder if that game will be really good compared to where Madden's going.
They
I don't
said
want to talk about
they
Madden.
were going to use the Madden engine because it's an EA game.
Right.
But like make adjustments. So it'll probably be similar. But so all that to say, there is an unbelievable thing going on right now where you have the opportunity. So the way that this is working is the university is partnering with boosters and alumni from their universities, most of which have a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Typically, they're, proficient in business, whatever. So, okay, I just went to the University of Arkansas, and I'm an alumni of this university. I own this car dealership. So now, this kid shows up to campus. He's a highly rated recruit. I'm going to tell him, hey, man, if you come to the University of Arkansas and play football, what I can do, I'll throw a new Ram truck your way. Oh. And you'll be the face of Ram. And that's, that's kind of stuff is happening.
That's crazy.
Now, this is where it gets even crazier. The NCAA, and you may have heard about the transfer portal. Mm-hmm. So there used to be rules about, like, if you transfer to a different university, you have to sit out a year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was essentially like a penalty for transferring.
That kind of sucks.
Right. So they've done away with that.
Okay.
And actually, recently, the NCAA has cleared it. You can transfer twice. So what's happening? You can so essentially someone like today,
right?
Even though the season is starting tomorrow, this wouldn't make much sense. Or this week, someone could be like, "Oh, I didn't win the starting quarterback job. Well, I'm transferring." And maybe during this season, I'll win this transfer job. So let me ask you a question, Max. If you have the ability to transfer wherever you want to go, and you're able to profit, what is your decision going to be based off?
Who's going to give me the best stuff?
We have free agency in college football right now.
Wow.
So it's insane what's going on with recruiting and with transfer. Like the whole transfer portal thing, it is unbelievable. These 18-year-old, 17-year-old kids are getting approached in their recruiting, making millions of dollars.
Does that widen the field? So, like, right now you have Bama and some other top teams. We'll talk about it. But, like, if you're a running back, you want to go to Bama. Does what's happening right now help, say, another team that's in the SEC, and A&M in Arkansas, does that help them get more talent? Because while you could go here where there's notoriety for being a great running back school, we'll pay some money for you to come here.
So there's kind of two things that could happen.
Or you could steal one of Alabama's running backs.
So yes and no.
Okay.
What happened a lot this year is that some of these schools that are still big names but maybe haven't recruited quite as well or performed quite as well have done a lot better in the transfer portal and in recruiting. Texas and A&M have recruited like crazy this year. But that's because
they're like a Notre
powerful universities.
Right.
Notre Dame, like you also have these schools that kind of always do well. So like your Alabamas, your Ohio States, your Georgias, your Clemsons, your Notre Dames, your Texas, your OUs, your USCs, like these are your like
people are going to want to go there
because
the name is there.
And USC, Texas, right? Like these are teams that in the last 5 years have been really kind of bad.
Mid.
But because they have this history and they're a powerful university in terms of name and brand and donor ability, money coming through the university, they're always going to recruit well. They're always going to, do pretty well.
Right.
But yeah, so like Texas this year did really well recruiting and really well in the transfer portal. They pulled a few people from Alabama to come to Texas. Now some things have happened in the last couple of weeks, but yes. So in that sense, yes. In another sense, it's almost like the whole rich getting richer type thing.
Right.
Because really, it's going to be these more powerful universities. They're still going to have, I always tell people, if you're a recruit and your goal is to get to the NFL, if you're Alabama, your resume, I said that weird.
I was gonna let it slide.
Both of y'all's eyes were like, your resume is like, hey, you're going to come here. If you're really good, you're going to come here for 3 years. You're going to start as a freshman. You got to play through your junior year. You're going to leave, right? But in those 3 years, it's pretty likely that you'll go to the national championship 3 times.
Yeah.
You're probably going to win 2 out of those 3. And you're going to the NFL. So if that's your deal, then they're like, yes, I'm going to go.
What's the ratio of people that play in college but don't go to the NFL?
Most. So most, by far, most college athletes don't even sniff the NFL.
But I'm guessing, I was just trying to think of like, could you go and try to get paid in college and be like, I don't want to play anymore?
So the idea and kind of the like, because this is where NIL is great. Because most of these athletes, and the reality is, even if you go to the NFL, the majority of those players, their world, it's not going to be like a
Patrick Mahomes,
right? Or I'm trying to even think like a Baker Mayfield, or a Kyler Murray. You go first overall, you step into a starting role, and you roll, right? Like most of these guys are getting drafted in 5th to 7th round, or going undrafted, signing, and they're bouncing around on practice squads.
Right.
And that's they make money, but they're not making, if you're a top 5 pick, your signing bonus is like $100 million or something like that.
So much money.
So it's stupid. That the difference is crazy. So in that sense, Johnny Manziel is the perfect candidate for this. Like he's the face for this kind of thing. He did not. His NFL career was like 2 or 3 years.
By his own fault.
Right.
He was a jabroni.
But had he been in this era of college football where he's a Heisman and he's making money the whole entirety of his football career, he would have been set up better. Now, obviously, he's not a great because
he would have lost the sponsorships anyway. I hear what you're saying though. It does make sense.
For a general person, where this is the let's take injuries as an example. You're a prospect. You're going into the draft. Let's say you've played 3 years. Now you can make some money playing those 3 years. What if you get into the NFL and your first year you have a career-ending injury?
A Joey Burrow, not career
right,
ending, but he did get injured.
Right. Yeah. Well, what if he didn't bounce back? Right. So, but that's a real thing. So in that sense, yeah, it's like it makes a lot of sense. It's just completely changed college football. So now what we had this past year over the off season, and I do want to kind of get into, because I think what we're going to see for the rest of college football forever, unless some serious changes are made, is literally the second the season ends, it's going to be free agency. You're going to start seeing, oh, I didn't get playing time this year. Oh, whatever. I'm going in the portal. And then, so essentially, I think the days of like, oh, these guys have been playing together for 3 years, and now we're getting the top of this development cycle, you know, and you get a team like Cincinnati, who made the playoff last year. Now it's a different example because they're joining the Big 12, but people will they'll just leave and go in the portal and shop around.
I think it's going to make worse football.
Right, because you don't get continuity.
Yeah, you need to work together. Like
right.
Yeah.
Right. So it literally is changing everything. It's wild.
Interesting.
So then there's that, and then I'll briefly touch on this, and then we'll move on because this is not as fun at all. But there's some serious conference realignment going on. So in the Power 5, the top 5 conferences, you have the Big 12, the Pac-12, the Big 10, the SEC, and the ACC. And Cody talked about this on the baseball podcast. It really all boils down to how much money everybody can make.
It's a money thing.
And do you remember what he said about how everyone can make the most money?
It's TV deals.
TV deals.
Yeah.
So essentially, right now, a bunch of, like, I think the Pac-12 and the Big 12, or no, the Big 10, they're negotiating their, like, next 7 years of, like, TV deals and sponsorships. And the numbers are actually in the billions. Like, it's unbelievable. Because if you think about it, if you're CBS or you're ESPN, how are you going to for sure lock in the most viewership possible?
Wow.
College football.
Yeah.
More than anything.
For sure.
So you're throwing the bag at these conferences. So then if you are a UCLA or a USC and you live on the West Coast, no one watches your games. They have this joke in ESPN, Pac-12 After Dark. That's because literally games start, if you live in the central time zone, the 7 o'clock game starts at 9 here.
9, yeah.
It starts at 11 on the East Coast.
You can't watch it.
So
bad
people
math.
don't, what do you mean?
There's just 1 hour from central to
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, it never made sense to me. Still, 10 o'clock kickoff.
It's still way too late.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So 10:30 actually. So you have USC. Did I get it wrong again?
I don't know why you said.
Well, because 7:30 is usually when they kick off, I think.
Oh, you never. Oh, okay. You never said the 30, so you just decided to toss it.
Yeah, my bad. Should have clarified. They kick off at 7:30, so 10:30. Anyway, so you got like these big brands, USC, UCLA, all these teams from the West Coast. If they want more viewership, they're going to jump ship. So the Big 10 starts grasping after these people. Hey, you come here. Well, same thing happened with OU and Texas going to the SEC. Less about the money, more about these are big brands. They want to be, the SEC is like, it's known as like, they win. Georgia, Alabama, right? Like you've got your last, LSU, you got your last 3 national champions right there, all in the SEC. Anyway, so you've got conference realignment, which is it actually changes a ton. It's not fun to talk about, but it really completely changes the landscape. So when the Big 12, for example, you lose Texas and OU, now you're at 8 teams. So what they ended up doing is they went after UCF, Cincinnati, BYU, and Houston. And so now it's starting in 2024, probably, if that's when everyone ends up shifting, the Big 12 will actually be at 12 teams. And they're bringing up teams that have either been independent or in a group of 5, so a lower conference.
Gotcha.
So, and that's kind of what's going on, is when somebody shifts and leaves a conference, then that conference has to kind of be like, whoa, what do we do, right? So there was talk about the Pac-12 like disintegrating because if USC and UCLA leave the Pac-12, then your only good teams left are Oregon and like Washington.
Right.
So then they were like, well, maybe we'll go to the Big 12 or the Big 10 or whatever, and then you'd be left with this, disintegrated conference.
Right.
So then they have to decide, do we go after some smaller teams to join our conference, or do we just disintegrate and let everyone divide? And you know what I mean?
When that kind of thing happens, is there any talk about like the teams that move to a conference being able to compete with the other teams in that conference? Because I think I view conferences in like a 6A, 5A, 4A type thing, and that might not be what it is. But at Texas's current state, I don't see them being able to compete.
Well, so that's the thing. is people are literally like, hey, I just had a weird throat noise.
That was weird. I heard it.
Hey, you have sucked for like a long time now.
Right.
They had the 1 year with Sam Ehlinger where they won like the Sugar Bowl or something like that. Aside from that, I don't think Texas has been good since like 2012,
Colt
somewhere
McCoy
around
days?
there. Yeah, maybe a little bit after that. How are they going to be good
Right.
in the SEC? And this may be a hot take. I don't think it is. I think they're going to get
Just
thrashed.
trounced. Yeah.
I mean,
So
we're going to...
I just do. Besides the money, what do they have to gain from doing that? Maybe
you're
it
in
helps
the
with
SEC.
the recruiting.
It helps with recruiting.
Okay.
Yeah, I think when what you used to be able to say at Texas is, if you were coming to Texas anywhere in the 90s or, I mean, pretty much up until 2010 is you could say, hey, if you come to Texas, you're going to play the best. You're going to compete against the best. It's going to be good on good the whole time. You're going to compete for national championships. And when you start losing and when you're in the Big 12, who has kind of been an up and down conference, I think guys are like, no, I'm not going to do that because I want to go to the SEC where like I'm competing for national championships.
Right.
So
Okay.
now when they're here, if Texas happens to have a good year in the SEC and they can beat an A&M or an Alabama, it's like they're they can make the playoff and go on a run.
Right.
Now, but you could argue Oklahoma's made the playoff like 3 times. They just have never been able to compete.
Right.
So
And I guess having the more money allows you to recruit better. It looks better, and so you're going to the possibility to build a program based off.
You're
of
essentially now your spiel is like you're in the best conference. You have the best opportunity to like compete, and you also have the best opportunity to like make NIL money. Right. So like,
and you're in Texas,
and you're
the best state
you're in Texas.
nation.
You're at Texas, which is still. I mean, they've gotten I think Arch Manning #1 recruit in all of this next class committed.
Bad colors though. I don't like burnt orange.
Yeah, I don't either. But so that's kind of what's going on. So where are we at on time now? Yeah, no.
102.
We did a lot in that last segment.
What are the things you want to touch on?
Okay, here's what I want to touch on.
Because I feel good about the 1 to 115.
Okay, that's fine. I want to do a few things. So I want to talk about this year specifically. Actually, I don't want to do that at all. That would take way too much time.
Okay.
So, and it is not going to matter. Here's what I want to do.
You kind of touched on this year.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So it's essentially it's going to be insane because
We're gonna
so
figure it
many
out.
people have transferred around.
And can transfer around.
Yeah.
Can you transfer mid-season? Can you hit the transfer portal mid-season?
I think you can. I can't ever remember because I feel like so many things that I listen to, people keep talking about, oh, well, there should be a deadline. And no, now that I think that, I think there is a deadline.
Okay.
But I've heard people talking about a fear of a quarterback entering the portal if they don't win a starting job, which then makes me think you could do it at any time.
Yeah.
But it just wouldn't make sense.
You got to relearn you learn a whole new playbook.
It would be like going through super days and then you don't win a starting position, so you leave the team.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's like you've already put in month of work.
But if they pay me more money at the other place,
Right.
what's stopping me?
I think once you're out of recruiting mode, that's just not where programs are. They're not in that mode. Right. They're in.
Well,
there's
that's what
games
we
going on.
Right. That's
now.
what we hope.
So, okay. Here's what I want to do. I think this is gonna be a lot of fun. I'm doing this with some friends of mine.
Okay.
I want each of us. I'm about to read the top 15.
Okay.
We can't pick any of these teams.
Okay.
We're each going to pick one team in all of college football, and it can be whatever you want to root for this year.
Okay.
And we can't pick the same one.
We can't pick the same team, and we're going to do like a little check-in with our team each week to see how they're doing.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but it can't be this team. So this is solely for fun.
Okay.
Can't be Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, Notre Dame, A&M, Utah, Michigan, Oklahoma, Baylor, Oregon, Oklahoma State, North Carolina State, USC, or Michigan State. So it can be
Holly, you're up first.
it can be any team other than those 15.
Are we gonna list the other teams?
Do you want me to?
all
How about
187
how about
of them?
I just list the rest of the top 25?
That'd be
and
helpful. Yeah.
Okay. The rest of the top 25 is Miami, Pitt, Wisconsin, Arkansas, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Wake Forest, Cincinnati, Houston, BYU. So let me just, a couple of teams that didn't get a lot of votes, but they got some.
Is Zach Wilson still at BYU?
No, he's on the Jets.
Oh, that's right.
Tennessee, Texas, Iowa, and Iowa State. You've got Penn State. You've got LSU. You've got Fresno State. You've got Minnesota. You've got UCF, Purdue, Mississippi State, Auburn, Florida, Florida State, Kansas State, North Carolina.
What are these?
These are just more teams.
More teams you can pick from.
Boise State, Air Force, South Carolina, UCLA, San Diego State, Nebraska,
now.
Well,
Texas Tech, TCU. You've got.
My question.
Yes.
This
Go on.
Sounds so dumb. Do they all play each other?
No.
They are in the conferences we were talking about. They play in conference.
Are we trying to pick within the same conference?
I think it would be fun to pick different in a different conference.
Okay.
But you don't know the conference, so just pick one, and I'll tell you what conference is in, and we'll go from there.
I know the team I want.
Okay. Did you?
I was gonna pick Ole Miss.
Okay, that's a great pick. That's a really good pick. So Ole Miss did really well in the transfer portal this year.
So excited.
And there's a few guys specifically. The number one running back in the transfer portal was actually at TCU and left TCU, and he's at Ole Miss. And they have this guy Lane Kiffin there, who's crazy, but he's a really good offensive mind. Yeah. And I think they're a sleeper this year. So that's a really good pick.
Sleeper.
Nice.
But they're in the SEC, so you can't pick anyone in the SEC. And I was going to pick an SEC team, so I'm not going to be able to do that either.
The first team that I thought of, I'm glad you called them out on the list of remaining in the top 25. Wake Forest.
Oh, okay.
Is the team I'm going for. I don't know anything about them. I know the name.
Cool.
And they have cool uniforms. I think
Yeah.
They do a blackout.
They do like a black and gold type thing.
gold thing. Yeah, that's really the only thing I know about.
Sick, dude. So you're Wake Forest. They're ACC.
Okay.
So we've got an SEC team and we have an ACC team. Okay, I'm gonna pick Kansas State.
You hate K-State.
I don't hate K-State.
Okay.
K-State always plays TCU like really uncomfortably. It's always this dumb game that like is never clean, and they win a lot.
Yeah.
They have a transfer quarterback from Nebraska, and they have this running back whose name is Deuce Vaughn.
That's a cool.
And
name.
he's like 5'6", but he's so
Almost
good.
as tall as you.
I know. He's literally like a little squirrel, and I'm
sure he'd hate that.
He's tiny and he's like a Darren Sproles, but I think they're super slept on this year. I think there's a few teams in the Big 12 that are overhyped this year.
How do you feel about Wake Forest? You didn't really say anything about them.
To be honest with you,
Don't know anything about them.
when I saw him at number 22, I was
surprised.
like, interesting.
Okay.
I don't know anything about Wake Forest, so it could be a good pick.
Okay.
So K-State, Wake Forest, and Ole Miss. That'll be fun.
Okay. I like that.
That's good. I feel pretty good about that. I'm trying to think about anything. What were the other things we were supposed to talk about?
I don't remember you had the outline.
I
wish
did.
you would wrote the outline.
I wish I would have read it.
Read it on the computer.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Well, I was going to kind of dive into the Big 12 because that's kind of where we primarily roll and talk more about that. But I just don't think we have the time.
Okay.
And that's fine.
I just want to know your top 3 favorite teams, whether to watch, whether to root for, based off their colors.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. I'm going to ask you. I'm going to toss the same question over to you as well.
Okay. Top 3 favorite teams?
Yeah.
So,
Or top 3 teams you would say you're a fan of.
I'm going to exclude TCU.
No, I want you to put it in
Okay.
there.
Well, number 1, TCU.
Okay.
For sure. I am super excited about this season. Like I said earlier, Gary Patterson was the head coach there for like 20 plus years. The last 3 years, bad. Just clearly he did some interesting hiring things that were conflicting, and it was very clear that they had no direction and no identity as a team. Bringing in Sonny Dykes, I think we're going to see a very explosive offense and an improvement at defense, which would be great because the defense last year was atrocious, and I'm really excited about it. My second favorite team to root for or watch, that's a good question. I like Oregon.
Okay.
Oregon has always kind of had this like flashy style of football, and obviously like with their uniforms. growing up watching like Marcus Mariota at Oregon,
right,
and LaMichael James and DeAnthony Thomas, Oregon was always putting like 60 points up with Chip Kelly's offense. So it was air raid. It was very fun. I think Oregon has had a couple of years where they've been like okay to somewhat good. I think it's about time for them to kind of get back into the national conversation. Let's see. I'm trying to think of another one. Let me think about somebody in the SEC.
I really want you to steal mine.
Oh, really?
Well, I don't know if you will, but
okay, this isn't the SEC, and it's kind of a lame pick, but I do like Clemson.
Dang it!
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Clemson is one of those teams. I think Dabo Sweeney, their head coach, is like a really cool dude.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was going to say.
He seems like a good guy, and they've had some solid teams over the last 5 years or so, and even more than that. But I'm really sorry. I feel like once you said that, in my mind, I was like, oh, who could he be thinking of? And then it was Clemson. So
it is Clemson.
I'm sorry.
It's fun to say Clemson because you really want to say Clemp. You really want to throw that P in there.
Clemson?
Yeah.
I
like Dabo Sweeney a lot. I think he's really cool. He just seems like a good coach. I like when a coach is excited about what they do.
Yeah.
I don't like an angry coach.
Sure.
And I also like their colors a lot. I have a Clemson sweatshirt.
Do you?
Because I like the purple and orange.
Yeah, it's cool.
I was going to say Go Tigers, but that's not them. They're the
Tigers too.
Are they Tigers? Okay. But I was going to do it.
You're going to do the LSU Go Tigers.
Yeah. And I think up there as well, and mostly just because I've gone to their games and I've been part of the crowd. It'd be TCU and then A&M.
Yeah. I still really want to go to an A&M game. I've heard that Kyle Field and that atmosphere is just crazy.
It's wild. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. That's on my list for sure.
Okay.
I want to work my way into. I've been to a game, obviously at TCU, at SMU, at Tech, at Oklahoma, and this year I think we're gonna go at Baylor.
Okay.
But I want to kind of work my way around the college football landscape.
They're really cool. Do you have any? You got a top three?
So never have I ever watched a full college football game.
That is unbelievable.
Actually, that's not
It's
unbelievable.
yeah.
A full one? She's seen bits and pieces
Okay.
of one. You've seen some college football.
Yeah.
You can talk a little bit louder. You do know that, right? You don't have to be close to the mic. You can just talk louder.
I like UT.
Okay.
Mainly because of Matthew McConaughey.
Okay.
Oh, fair enough.
But I feel like
Somebody had to say it.
That's a fine reason.
That's fine. Yeah.
They seem to have a cool like.
They got a vibe. They got a thing going on.
It's Austin.
Um,
Bevo, all that jazz.
Whole thing.
I was thinking Oregon as well.
Cool.
Only
Okay.
because I can mainly remember their uniforms.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's why they do that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just for
They
funsies.
were seriously like paving a
the way.
road there for sure.
They got the wings on their shoulders,
Great.
the silver helmets.
They have the Nike connection. So
yeah. Nike Combat.
what else?
The only other one that I can think of, like, not that I even like looked into or was like into this team, but Alabama, just because I remember
They're winners.
and didn't they play? Wasn't there a big like rivalry game between them and some other team like a couple years ago that they went to the end and it was like a big deal?
This past year they played Auburn. So Auburn is in Alabama, really close to University of Alabama, and Alabama was undefeated this year. Auburn had like a really bad year, but this past year I think it went to like double or triple overtime, and Auburn almost beat them, but Alabama ended up winning. But yeah, so and they call that the Iron Bowl, which is pretty cool. So
That is
it's probably that. So
Thanks
something
for-
to keep
thanks for
in
playing.
mind. Texas and Alabama play in week 2 this year.
Oh.
Yeah, so
At
that'll be
Bama or
fun.
at Texas?
At Texas. So put me down for Texas getting beat by like 35.
Might be more.
Yeah. Okay, let's all pick who we think's going to win the Natty this year. Let me read your top 4.
Okay.
Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, and Clemson. So Alabama and Georgia played each other last year. Alabama lost, Georgia won. You've got...
I think that's what I remember for some reason.
Oh, that's probably what it was.
You probably
They
do
played
remember
each
that.
other in the SEC championship and then again in the national
I think
championship.
that's what I remember.
Before we do this, I want you to name a team that you have there and they're the biggest asset that they're returning this year.
On each of those teams?
On each of those teams, yeah.
Alabama is returning their starting quarterback who won the Heisman last year.
Okay.
And a literal, his name is Will Anderson Jr. He's an outside linebacker, defensive end. He could win the Heisman this year as a defensive end.
Player. Wow. Okay.
So they're Alabama. I said it earlier. I'd say it again. Anytime Alabama loses a national championship, they go on to win.
Okay.
Almost always. They're also returning, obviously, Nick Saban, but both of their coordinators.
Oh, wow.
And Bill O'Brien, their offensive coordinator, coached the Houston Texans for like 10 years. So I think it's a lock to say that Alabama is favored to win.
Okay.
Ohio State is returning their quarterback, C.J. Stroud, who is also in contention to win the Heisman, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, their wide receiver from Rockwell, Texas, who will 100% be the first wide receiver drafted in the draft this year.
Facts.
Georgia is returning their quarterback, Stetson Bennett, and
I like Stetson
I think maybe a running back.
Okay. Any key players on defense?
So Georgia, a key thing about their defense, one of the best defenses ever last year, lost a lot to the draft. So could be a little bit different. And then Clemson had a little bit of a down year last year.
Well, they lost Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, and then I believe they had some quarterback trouble, kind of going back and forth between some guys last year. But they are, they're returning a quarterback and some offensive weapons. And Clemson just always has good defense. Yeah. So, and then your first two out right now are Notre Dame and A&M. So A&M's number 6 right now, something to keep your eye on. If A&M could somehow beat Alabama again this year, they might be there.
Wow.
So those are your top 6.
I want to do a hot take for funsies' sake, but I really do think it's going to be Bama.
Yeah.
I do like Georgia, though.
Oh, I like Georgia. I was rooting for Georgia all last year just because I wanted them to beat Alabama. Yeah. I think it's going to be Alabama this year. Notre Dame is always ranked too high. I would like Clemson to do something.
Notre Dame is ranked too high all the time.
Always.
What is that?
So do we
have enough time for that?
Yeah. So in short, they're independent. They are not in a conference. And they jumped into the ACC for the COVID year, which was weird, but they're not in a conference. So they schedule whoever they want. And they always schedule a few hard games.
But mostly it's easy teams?
But it's easy to not play like in the SEC. And so you end up with a 11-1 record or whatever every year, 10-2. And
I wish we would have had more time to talk about the playoff. Do we have enough time to talk about the playoff? Because the playoff...
You mean like without expansion and all that?
Well, it doesn't make any sense to me how you really get into the college football playoffs.
So here's... So there's no rules, essentially. Most of the time, it's this idea of like the eye test. So, for example, this past year, you had Cincinnati. They were undefeated, but they're a group of 5 team. They're not even in the Power 5.
Right.
But they had beaten some difficult teams. So an undefeated Cincinnati got into the 4th spot of the playoff, whereas like I'm trying to think about who didn't make it. I think a 1-loss or like a 2-loss Baylor didn't make it.
Right.
A 2-loss A&M didn't make it. But so then people start getting into this. And
you're confused because like it's a 2-loss A&M that beat Bama.
Right. So that's where then the argument is always going, okay, so you've got the resume, but would a undefeated Cincinnati really beat a 2-loss A&M? Right? That's where people start getting like...
Well, and is there room to expand... And I think it's what you just said, expansion. Right. Make it 18. 18 play.
That is every year from late October through the new year, everyone is talking about, why don't we do 8-team? Why don't we do a 10-team and the first 2 get, a bye or whatever the numbers are.
However that works.
But, and I think, so you have 2 sides. Most people are like, yes, that would be great. Why don't we do that? The other 2 people are like, okay, well, then bowl season doesn't matter. And it used to be that if you were ranked 1 and 2 at the end of the year, you made the national championship game. Mm-hmm. Everybody else made bowl games. And that was huge and it's exciting and you were excited to be in whatever bowl game. Well, now that there are 4 teams that go to the playoff, people feel as though the bowl season doesn't matter as much.
I feel like it doesn't matter that much.
Well, and you're starting to see these players, if they're not making the playoff and they know they're going to go to the draft, they're like, I'm not playing in this bowl game.
Right.
You know, it's like, I'm playing in the Liberty Bowl in Georgia. No, like, I'm going to go to the draft, right? So it is less valuable in a sense. And so people are worried that if you expand the playoff, that is only going to make it more of that.
I hear that.
But then every year, that 5th and 6th team is always like, we could have been in.
And sometimes you're like, probably should have been.
And I think I've told this story before, but the first year of the college football playoff, heading into the last week, TCU was ranked number 3. They beat, it was West Virginia or Iowa State, handled Iowa State, like 56-55-7 or something. They get jumped in the rankings by Ohio State, who ended up being number 4. Ohio State ends up beating Oregon and Alabama and winning the national championship. TCU ends up being the first team out, 5th ranked, and they beat Ole Miss in the Peach Bowl, beat them like 59-3. I mean, it was stupid, something like ridiculous like that, right? So, but that's what you have every time. It's like that 5th and 6th team is almost always really good. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be the first team out, right? So anyway, those are some of my thoughts on college football.
I like that. That was good.
I'll say this.
That makes me excited.
I am so excited.
Yeah.
This year will be really weird. There's been a lot of coaching changes. Mm-hmm. There have been a lot of transfers. A lot of teams are starting like a new quarterback or, things like that, especially in the Big 12. I think your top 4 or 5 is kind of going to be that way most of the year. Mm-hmm. But I think outside of that, there's going to be a lot of weirdness in college football. And I think it's going to be really fun and very exciting. So I'm going to go to a few games. We're going to go to TCU SMU in Dallas.
At SMU.
Sunny
Dykes back in the building.
Woo! Did you get your It's Always Sunny in Fort Worth shirt?
I did not. I got
mine.
I got the...
you got the... What was it?
I can't
Funky
remember.
Town something? I don't remember.
No, something about... Consider yourself horned.
Yeah, I like that.
That's good.
So pretty pumped about it.
It'll be fun.
Anything else you'd like to say as we wrap?
I don't think so.
Go Frogs, baby.
Go Frogs.
Holly, any final
words? Thoughts?
I found it very intriguing.
Good.
It made me interested to watch college football.
Will you watch a whole game?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think last year I got more into football with watching NFL.
I think all of football was more entertaining last year, especially in the playoffs of the NFL.
Oh my gosh, the NFL playoffs last year were unbelievable.
But I think football brought the world back to a little bit more normal after COVID. I think that was integral to coming back.
Integral.
Integral?
Yeah, integral.
Is really?
Yeah.
How do you say somebody? I'm pretty sure I know how you say it. This doesn't really matter. But somebody who practices law, how do you say that?
Is it
a lawyer?
Yeah, lawyer. It's supposed to be a lawyer.
I've heard somebody say lawyer before.
It's like when people name their kid Sawyer, and some people are like, "Hey, Sawyer," and you're like, "God, that sounds weird."
Wait, so is it lawyer or lawyer?
I think it's lawyer. It's you should say it like LOYER, like lawyer.
I don't know about that. But put it in the comments.
Also,
what you think?
Give us some hot takes or bold predictions for the college football season in the comments.
Yeah.
Let us know who you're rooting for. Let us know if you're if you got a hot take. Let us know who your vote for national championship winner is. So,
Cody, I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about this.
Yeah,
episode.
I've got quite a few that I'm looking forward to. TCU kicks off against Colorado, 7 p.m. on Friday night.
You'll be watching.
I will be watching. So
Very good.
I'm excited.
Very good. Well,
all right.
That's been What You Think. And we'll see you next week for the season finale, I believe.
That's right.
This is episode 9, so that'll be 10.
I'm out of town this weekend. It's Labor Day.
Oh, that's right. Well, we'll do another off week. We've been really trudging through.
We might as well just make this the season finale.
What do we do?
We'll open it up in a couple weeks.
Ended at 9. And, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
This has been season 2.
This has been the season finale. This has been season 2. And we're excited
we
for
stepped it up in season 2.
We really did. There's been a lot of improvements. Made a new hire. Maybe we'll come back with some sponsorships next.
There's no way. No chance.
We'll see what happens.
Okay. All right. Good deal.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, See you next season.
Sounds good.